today we have with us here Jamir Garcez. Like I said, he's a good friend of mine. We met. I'll talk about this when we met when our basketball CVs converged. So informal conversation on racial issues in basketball in Brazil. Jamir played basketball for a long time. Is an engineer now, but is also doing a lot of research, and he's working on this book on race and Brazilian basketball, which we talk a lot about that stuff, quite a bit. So here's Jamir's basketball resume. So he started playing in 2003 in Santa Maria, which is close to your neighborhood, right, Jamir? Closer to
it's my neighborhood in Brazil.
Yeah. And then, 3, he switched to Apabi, DF, which is a little further away, closer to the downtown Brasilia, DF. And then he moved to Macaé, which is in Rio de Janeiro, and then played in different places in São Paulo, which is kind of like the main basketball state in Brazil, and played there for between 2005 and 2009. Then in 2010, which is when we met, he went back to Brasilia and played for Basquete Planalto ESPLAN from 2010 to 2016. And then in 2016, he played for Cerrado Basquete, also in Brasilia. And he was part of the U18 state select for the federal district in 05 and 06, and the young talent select for the federal district in 2014. And something like the context, and we can even talk more about this if anybody has questions. So in Brazil, we play for clubs, but there are also like national tournaments where you play for your state. So what I mean state select is this: you go and play against all the other states, right, in this tournament, right? So so a little background for me, for students. Sometimes I share some stuff, but not all of it, because this is really inside baseball to a certain extent. So in my youth, I played in Goiás, which is really close to DF, to where he grew up. And both DF and Goiás are now like really big basketball states in Brazil, especially back 15, 20 years ago. Between 1991 and 1996, my team won every single state tournament in Goiás. And also, there's a caveat here. I was able to get somewhere with basketball. Basketball helped me quite a bit. We're going to talk more about that. But I also had like one of the arguably one of the best players in our generation in the country was on my team from 1991 to 1998, really. So it was easy to win. You would average 30, 40 points a game and would just pick up the pieces, basically. So then 1997, I moved to São Paulo to play for Tênis Clube de Campinas. And then 1998, I moved to Rio, and I played 98 and 99. I played in Rio de Janeiro. Then from 2000 into 2004, I played. I came to the United States on a basketball scholarship and played for Baker University in Kansas. But also one summer when I was in Brazil, in the United States, I also played the summer in Brazil for Clube Jaó in Goiás, and we were runner-ups for the state that year, playing against one of the professional teams with the most talent, at the time. While at Baker, I'm on the top 10 scorers of the school, and I still hold the career block shot record. I like to toot my own horn sometimes. Still that 20 years later, nobody got even close to it. Then I went to grad school, went to work. I got injured my last year, so I decided not to pursue a career in basketball. But then when I went to do my field work in Brasilia, I ended up kind of teaming up with the people from ESPLAN. That's kind of where Jamir and we played together. We play the same position, right? So there could even be some rivalry there, but really it became a thing that we just complemented each other. We almost never played together because we really have similar styles even. Yeah. So we kind of alternated, and it was a really cool thing. We became really good friends since then. And then in 2013, I went back and to play just the state tournament. The Central West tournament. That's kind of where we both times we played that. And then I was state select teams in 96, 97, and 99. In 99, we were national runner-ups against São Paulo State, which is again like a big state. So and again, we can also talk more about those things too. This becomes kind of a history, and catching up and being more like back in my days and stuff like that. So we don't have to go that far. But so I want to start with this. Like there was one video that I'm going to share here now, and I'm still salty about this. I'm still mad about it because what's going to happen here would not have happened if I have not helped. So I just want to play this, and then we'll start back. So I was really mad because it was our goal. Jamir and I said we were going to break the backboard today, and it was lose. We could see it was lose, and I had, I think, 2, maybe 3 dunks where I just held in the rim as much as I could without having a tee, getting teed up, and I tried to shake it, and it didn't come out. And then so I figured I'd loosen up, and then Jamie went there and just broke the whole thing. And also, I've never done in my life. I wanted to do it, and now it would just be awkward if I do it because I'm old and I'm heavy. So now it wouldn't be as fun if I did it. So okay, so now we, and also for my students especially, if you feel comfortable right now, it'd be good to have your cameras on so we can have a conversation. And so I have really just 2 driving questions that I kind of wanted to kind of like address a little bit on my side, and then Jamir will address on his side. And the 2 questions are, what basketball provided to you, and then kind of what are your experiences with race? What are your experiences with race issues in basketball in Brazil specifically, right? So, and I can talk a little bit about the U.S. experience too, but I want to talk a little bit before we started today. And one thing that for me at least, and I'll let Jamie speak for himself, is that basketball gave me everything that I have today, right? Because I wouldn't be in the United States, I wouldn't have the life that I have right now if I wasn't here. But I always want to make sure to be careful to not say that basketball got me out of poverty, right? Because really I was a lower middle class person. The one of the reasons I went away from home, I left when I was 16, and it was my last year of high school. And one of the reasons is because I knew it was in the middle of an economic crisis in Brazil, and I knew my parents were struggling to pay for my private school education. Right, I went to private school my whole life. I played basketball. When I played basketball in Goiânia, it was paid, like it would pay to play, right? But so one of the reasons for me to go to play basketball is to use the skill that I have and get a scholarship to finish up my last year of high school in a private institution. Honestly, there was never a conversation about me going to public institutions. I never even understood the context of why that was such a big deal until later when I started studying, because I was a private school kid, right? But I know it, the year I left, I almost couldn't get enrolled in my other school because my parents owe 4 months of tuition to the previous school, and they wouldn't let release my transcript. So I almost actually didn't go to school for my final year because my parents couldn't afford it, right? But that's the thing. I still had the resources. We were struggling middle class. If I hadn't come to the United States the time I came, so I played basketball for a couple of years. With intentions to play professionally, but education was still a big part of it. My mom was very adamant about both my brother and I getting an education. My brother, he came to the United States as a 22-year-old freshman, right? He got a scholarship too, but he played for 4 years in Brazil professionally before coming. So basketball really gave me everything and gave me a different perspective and allowed me to travel, gave me a scholarship to come to the United States we could never afford. It was easier for me to come to a pretty good school in the United States than it would be for me to get in the best schools in Brazil, right? Even though the schools in Brazil that are better are free because they're public, but you have to study really hard to get in. And most times, especially back then when there was no quotas, there was no affirmative action policy when I was there. If you had to go to private school, some of my friends would go 2-3 years paying extra after high school to get to that school that they wanted to. So so again, basketball is important. It's a big part of my life, and I couldn't see. It's hard to imagine my life in a different trajectory, right? But I also want to make it very, very clear, there were. And there are examples like this, and I think we can even talk about that. There are examples of people that actually were lifted out of poverty through sports, right? And that's a big part of it. and I'm still like very grateful. And I think basketball really helped me with other skills as well, like just perseverance and and failing and being okay with failing, right? And things like that. But again, like it was an important part of it, but I don't want to like overplay this and say is the reason why it is the reason I'm here, but not like I would be doing something else. I probably would have been fine in Brazil, living a lower middle class life, but not like starving or anything like that. So yeah. So how about you, Jamir? Can you share a little bit about your background? Oh, you muted. There you go.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Good morning. My name is Jamir. I'm from Brazil. I'm a friend of Pedro, and I have 33 years old. I'm an engineer now. I'm a former basketball player. And basketball changed my life because I started to play basketball. I have 14 years old, and basketball in the beginning is more to help me for the social because I don't have it's my teenager time. I think about I not stay on one group because I'm so tall. I'm a 6'7" when I have a 13 years old. It's so tough because I can't use the same shoes of everybody and the same clothes. And it's tough because I don't have an identity because I'm a child, I'm a teenager. And when I started on basketball, everybody's like is look like me. Everybody have the same problems. Everybody have the problems with the clothes, with the shoes. That is a big problem in Brazil because I using 16 in Brazil. It's so tough to buy a 16 shoe. Pedro helped me so much when she come to Brazil to give me some shoes, and I buy some ones for Amazon and eBay. And Pedro came to me when he comes to Brazil, and so tough for me in this time. And when beginning the basketball, I think, man, I have my word now. I have my group because everybody here have the same problems that I have. So important to me. And then my life in basketball is so fast everywhere out because when I stay on my vacation with my family on Macaé. Macaé is the city of my mother's family. And I stay for to go to the beach and see my grandparents. And I have a chance to play basketball with the boys, and the boys talk about the test of the teams, the tryouts on the team, and I do the tryouts, and I have a chance to have a private school and a little money and living on the club and play a real basketball. In this state, Rio de Janeiro, have a better basketball than my state, the Federal. And I go to Macaé. My father is a former track and field athlete, and my whole family, for the part of my father, is a track and field athlete. And my father lives his life. I'll go outside to home to go to the college and be an athlete of track and field. And he liked the idea for be an athlete too, and beginning my life outside home. And in the beginning, I lived with my parents, my grandparents, but after this, I'm gonna live in the club, and it's changed my life because I stay alone on the road and have a chance to live with the money, with the people, see the real world, if the world you never see with my parents. We talk in Brazil have expression. We talk about the inside of the wings of the mothers or the fathers or the parents, and I stay outside these and have a chance to see the real life and have more problems. And be a man, a real man, a real man, and see the drugs, the all problems, and say, man, you need to stay on the right way for have a big life. And basketball changed my life. I love this. Basketball changed my life in the whole side of my life because after this, after having my group, we stay on the basketball. Everybody saw I have an identity. Everybody see me in the street and say, "Oh, this guy is a basketball player." He give me a lot of confidence because I'm an insecure guy in the beginning, and basketball give me a lot of confidence. And after this, I stay when I'm watching watching NBA and see the guys, and he watching out. We start off the social medias and the Orkut and the MySpace, Instagram, and I'm watching the life of the real players. We start talking about what the players do outside of the court. It's just so important because I understand the story about the Karim Jabbar and Carmelo Anthony and a lot of black players will talk about the problems if on your communities about race. It is for me so important because I see my idols on the sports talk about the problems that we have in Brazil too, on the race. It is for me so important. Basketball giving these tools, choosing that identity and it made me be proud, a lot of proud about this, because I need this. I see a lot of problems, a lot of social problems and racial problems, and the basketball show if I can have a stand guy and have a stay on my head stand out time, because I mean, that is not a problem. The basketball have helped me so much in this, and I see a lot of stories about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and the histories about the black people important in Brazil, like Zumbi dos Palmares. It's so important. Basketball helped me so much in this black identity, so important. And I'm gonna play in other states, playing on São Paulo, and have a lot of more black people, and the people who talk more about the racial problems is so important for me too. And I have a chance to play in the big clubs. In 2006, I have a chance to play one big club in Brazil. The name is Coque Ribeirão Preto. I play with the coach of the national team in this time, the Lula Ferreira, with a lot of great players. It's so important for me. And my life is nice. After this, after 7 years playing, I want to return to my home, because I think basketball is not the great way to have a great job, a great life. Because basketball in Brazil is so tough to play, to have a real money, have a pro, that can buy a home or apartment. Pedro know how I stay talking. So tough in Brazil to have a real money to play basketball. We have a lot of players, a lot of friends. He's a great player, but not have a chance to have a real money. We're talking about the friends like Bruno, Diego, a lot of players in Brazil, great players, but don't have a real money to have a great life. And I think about this, and for me, maybe I need to study, go to the college, do a real study something for talk about other things outside of the basketball. I'm beginning in São Paulo to study on physical education, and I want this because I don't want to play basketball my whole life and talk about basketball and be a teacher in basketball and do some classes. For me, it's not like for life. I think, man, I can do other things, not just to play and talk about basketball my whole life. And I go to the college. I return to Brasilia. I have a scholarship on the ES plan, and I'm beginning to study civil engineering in Brazil. I'm formed in 2017. Today I'm an engineer. My specialty is geotechnic. My specialty is to do some roads. That's my specialty in engineering. But I work in a lot of things, building homes and other things. And after this, I started beginning writing some things and talk about what the guys. In 2010, I played with Pedro. Pedro is in Brazil. Do you doctor or you master?
When I was doing my doctorate, yeah, when I was there.
And have talked about it. I asked for Pedro about how in US, about the story, the chances to the college, and Pedro is so important for me. For talk about this. In 2016, Pedro have a class to come to Brazil. 25 people, maybe. In 2016, when you come to Brazil,
I think it was 12 students.
Yeah. We go to the places of my parents. So my parents were part of my father. My father grew up in a place. The name is Quilombo. Quilombo is a place when the runaway slaves can have a free life in Brazil. Maybe you don't have this in US in his story, but Quilombo is a part so important in Brazil. And my father grew up in the place in the old times as a Quilombo, so important for me. After I finished my graduation on the college, I think about the problems of the basketball issues we have every time. I stay watching the Sports Center, and the people sit talking about the NFL, about the problem if you don't have so much black quarterbacks, and the linebackers in the big part of the time is black. The strong guys are black, and the smart guys is white. I watched this and beginning to think about this. Well, maybe this is a big problem, because in the collective sports in Brazil, we have the same problem. On the Brazilian basketball, the guards, on the whole basketball in the world, the guard is a more smart guy, the more intelligent guy. And the people in Brazil don't like black guards, because they thinking the black players just can running, just strong. Everybody talks the black guards are in Brazil. The expression is burro, like a donkey. You know, it's the same expression, Pedro, in the US.
No, but it's like they're dumb, right? They're not.
Like they're dumb, yeah. And I still think about this. I watching the volleyball. I don't know the position in volleyball. You know, levantador, like what?
Setter.
The setter. I see. Never watched a man black sailor in the volleyball. I watched one woman. The name is Fofão. They have a lot of problems in the national team because the people don't have the real confidence about his game. You can have a leadership on the teams. And if they think about in the our sports, at the collective sports in Brazil, maybe the three more important, like a basketball, volleyball, and soccer. The soccer in Brazil is the number 10 jersey. We talked is the camisa 10 is maybe in Brazil is the meio campo. I don't know the expression in soccer in US maybe is what for the meio campo.
The midfielder.
The midfielder,
Yeah.
the more smart guy to articulating the plays. And we don't have more black this guy, the black guys. Maybe there's the less famous is the Ronaldinho from Barcelona. We don't have a lot of black guys on this position. But you're watching on the zagueiros, we have a lot of black guys because a strong position. The guys need to be big and strong and bad face. And instead, think about this, they're gonna watching for the basketball. A lot of purposes we have. We have the one big player. The name is Janete Arcaim. 2 days ago, she have a birthday, and Janete Arcaim play on the Houston Comets on the beginning of the WNBA, and she has 4 rings. And the national team in Brazil never have a great positions on the world competitions before Janete starts to play. He starts to play in the national team with have 15 years old. He's so nice. The Americans respect a lot so much the Janete. She's so important for me, for Brazil, for everybody. But in Brazil, anybody talk about Janete. Our people talk about the white players. We have 2 white players more famous than Janete in Brazil, like Hortência. In Brazil, the people talk he's the queen of the basketball, and we have a lot of players. His name is Paula. The people call the Paula is the Magic Paula, like a Magic Johnson. He's a great player. But for me, Jamir, Janete Arcaim is the best player of all time. The females basketball because Janete have a lot of. He have 4 rings in WNBA, the more stuff championship around the world, and Janete is so important. So important for me. The Brazil stay on the map of the basketball in the world when Janete starts on the national team. And the people don't talk about this because Janete is black. That's the problem. Janete is black. Janete don't stay on the TV all time for talking about this. And the people on the media talk every time. The Hortência and Paulo. But for me, Janete is the goat. Is the goat for on the Brazilian. And this is the stay writing a book. I writing 12 chapters, and they stay have a lot of interview. I have more than 100 people interview for a lot of players on the basketball in Brazil. The big sport is the men's on the basketball because I have more contacts because I play basketball. The guys who know who I am. But I'm gonna in the next semester I'm gonna start with the women's because I stay doing my connections for have a chance to talk with the women's. But in Brazilian basketball, we have a lot of problems. In the national team, we talk about the problem on the black guards, because the people don't have a lot of confidence on the black guards. The whole story of the national team, we have just 8 guys on this position. It's so tough in Brazil to have just 8 guys on playing on the guard position in basketball. For me, it is so to show for us the people don't have a confidence in black players because black players don't smart. The people like have a standard in Brazil of this position on the guards. It's the guys from the state of São Paulo. He's white. That's the standard that people like because the people think is the more important guy, the more smart guys. I don't like this. For me, this is ridiculous. And maybe it's this, Pedro. You have another question? I talk is this what you want to listen, Pedro?
Yeah. No, I think it's it's good. You talked started a conversation about race too, and so I want to say a couple things and then maybe open up for people to ask some questions. But yeah, I think it's interesting. When you're talking about like historically in the national team, only 8 men were black men who play the guard position. And you got to think about this. Brazil has Brazil. In the 60s and 70s, we were world champions, right? So we are a basketball powerhouse. We haven't had a lot of luck the last few years. But we're a basketball powerhouse. So if you think about this, from what you all learned so far, with the miscegenation of Brazil, and all those things, to have only 8 players who are black or brown, playing the position that is quintessential, the position for the distributor of the game, the smart person. And honestly, this conversation has only started after like last 15 years, right? When Black consciousness became more part of the conversation, right? When Black identity became a part of it, people started questioning more of those ideas. And then also like Jamie was saying, this connection to the US when we started asking these questions. Again, think about this too, like, I think the 90s is when we start having these conversations about race, right? And now we have it about gender, right? With women being coaches on men's teams and things like that. But yeah, so there's a lot of like parallels in that. But the biggest parallel to me is the silence, right? The parallel is that we spend 40, 50 years not talking about this. So then now that we ask this question, it's like, where is this coming from? Like, and then it's like, well, it's not about race, it's just like, that's how it was, it's the best player works that way. So there's something to think about too in sports in general, but especially basketball. With organized basketball, like, the federation basketball that we call in Brazil, and then the street ball, right? So in the United States, the context will be like Rucker Park in New York, and I can send some links later. Rucker Park in New York, where like there's basketball legends who white people don't know, right? They're very famous among Black communities, but most people don't know because they never play in the NBA, right? So we have the same thing in Brazil. Like, I was a middle class kid that was very sheltered. So when I was 16 years old, I left home and I was like staying with a bunch of 16, 17-year-olds in the same house with various like levels of economic kind of like backgrounds, and I was scared of going to play street ball, right? Because I was scared of the Black people they were playing, right? Not scared of not scared of them, but of their skill, right? I was like, I'm gonna be, here I am, a guy that's like getting paid to play, right? At age 16, and these guys are all better than I am, and they have no chance, right? Because they are playing street ball, a different style of basketball, right? Much more flashy, right? And all those things. So I've always been a player by the rules, right? So I like, I much more like set plays. The coach tells me to do something, I'll do it, right? But that's part of it is my education, and that also limits the style of players and limits who can play, right? So I think that's kind of interesting to think about too.
I can talk something. Yeah, we should talk about the basketball in Brazil. The players don't have a chance to play. Play basketball in Brazil is so tough because basketball is so expensive in Brazil. Because for you buy a single shoes, it's so expensive. You need to have a ball. You need to have a court. You need, and on the public courts in Brazil, we don't have a rim and the hoop. You don't have this. And it is so tough for you beginning to play to start to play basketball. You need to go to the club. In the club, you need to pay for this, for the classes, and you have a teacher. It's so tough for the Black guys playing basketball in Brazil. I have a chance to play basketball because I'm from the hood, from the name of Santa Maria in Brazil, but I have a lot of privilege because I have a dad on my home every time. This is so important on the Brazilian hoods, maybe in the US too. I have a dad on my home every time. I eating every day. I eating meat every day. I have a room. I have a bed. I don't have any problems about the money with my life because I have a dad. She's so important for me. And I live in the hood, but I have more chance for the other guys. And before to play basketball, my father is a physical education teacher, and I have a chance to do a lot of other sports. I swim. I go to the track and field. I play soccer. I love soccer, but I'm so tough to play soccer. I'm really bad on soccer. It's so tough for me when a young guy because everybody in Brazil have a dream to play soccer on the national team. Pedro, baby, have the same dream when he's a child. And I have a chance, man. I have a lot of chance because I have a father, I have a mother, I'm so different of the guys of my hood because I have a chance to study, to eat. This is so important in Brazil. So tough. The poor people in Brazil don't have this chance to eat every day, to eat meat every day. And I play basketball, and I see a lot of guys who don't have money for staying on the way to play, but have a lot of great guys, so smart guys, so intelligent guys, but maybe the guys don't have the money, and need to start so early to work for helping the home with the money. This is so tough in Brazil. We lost a lot of people. I think not just in basketball, but in our sports, we lost so much people with the potential to be a medalist on the Olympics. But in Brazil, don't have a chance to explore this because maybe corruption and maybe just beginning, just organizing this to our people to have a chance to go to sports. The sport changed my life. Like Pedro, I maybe if I don't begin in the basketball, I have a chance to go to the college and study. Maybe gonna be more tough because I need to have a job and pay for this college. But I have a chance to choose my college and chose in Brazil is the course. What's the name in the US? Is the course?
The major.
The major. For study engineering, I have a chance to just like the basketball. It's so expensive to pay the major of the engineering in Brazil. So expensive, and basketball have given this chance. This is so important for me. The sport changed my life. I love the basketball for this. And the racial problem is so tough. They're still talking about the coaching on the national on the pro league in Brazil. The name is NBB. We have 17 teams, and we have just one black coach. The name is Léo Figueiró. He's coaching on the Corinthians. Corinthians is a famous soccer team in Brazil. And Léo Figueiró is just is the only black coach in the whole league on the 17 teams. This is very so tough. If you're going to watch to other parts, like directors and supervisors on the teams, we have just two. One on the Corinthians, they have Rafael Garcia. One guy on the Paulistano, his name is Lucas Costa. And I stay working on the pro team in Brazil. The name is Renato Basquete, like a supervisor, but I work just 1 month. I have some problems with the guys, and I go out and living my life in another place. But in Brazil, we have this problem because we talk about the people don't have a confidence on the black cards, but the people don't have a confidence to give this position of the power on the team for the director or the GM. We don't have a owner, any owner, black owner in any team in Brazil. Just for me, sort of, just for me, show the social problems if you have. The basketball players go to play basketball, but after this, the players don't go to the college, don't have a lot of money. Maybe the people need more help for leading his careers. Maybe
You know, and I was gonna say, like, if you think about, and this is getting like the history of basketball in general. Like, if you look at the NBA in the 70s and 80s, there were also ownership was all white, but players were mostly black, and the league was floundering, right? And it wasn't until some, Michael Jordan and before him, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, but it wasn't until the generation started like helping making this part more popular that that it became the sport it is today. And but most players were black, but same thing, like there were no black owners, or maybe one or two, very few black coaches and things like that. Something that I want to kind of mention, and something that I want you all to keep in mind when you go to Brazil, is the idea of public spaces as racist spaces, right? As racialized spaces. That's something that I wanted to mention. Like, playing playing club basketball is the way to play professionally, to become a professional player. And the overwhelming majority of the clubs are not actually public spaces; they're private spaces, and they're overwhelmingly white, right? So when I was growing up in Brazil, I played for Jockey Club, which is actually the horse racing club of the state, right? And I was one of the few black players on the team. There was like 4 of us, and then Diego, who is like a really professional basketball player for 20 years, and he didn't pay because he was that good, right? From very early age. And then I moved to Campinas Tennis Club, so it's a tennis club, right? And then I became an employee of the team, which meant I went through the service. Door, right? I couldn't go through the door that the people who were members of the club could go in, right? I went literally to the back, right? And same thing, like you see, like there were almost nobody coming to the front who were not white. Everybody coming to the back were black and brown, right? So this would be like employees of the club in general, but also all the athletes in basketball, volleyball, handball, things like that. Then I moved to Grajaú Country Club, which is in Rio. And in that time, I actually lived in the club, right? I lived under the bleachers, right? it was awesome when I was 17, but like if you think about it, that's kind of bullshit, right? That's where they put me, uh, under the bleachers. So I lived in a space, and the club was all white people, right? With the few people who got paid to play were the black and brown ones. Then I moved to Tijuca's tennis club, which was also a tennis club in a fancy neighborhood in Rio. And the interesting thing about that is that in Rio, Tijuca Tennis Club is like in a very central area, but it's like 4 blocks from the Salgueiro favela, from Salgueiro Morro. And and that's where we went. Like, so, and not only that, we were, because of the basketball part, we also had this privilege, both in the communities and in the club, right? So we're still employees, we still went to the service door, but people saw us and respect us for what we're doing. And because we're basketball players, and most of us were black and brown, we had free reign at the communities as well, right? And there was actually one time I was about to get robbed. This guy was like going through my pockets. It's like, hey, hold on. Are you so and so? I was like, yeah. Oh, okay, my bad, man. See you later. Right? Keep doing what you're doing. So that's an interesting thing too, right? And and Tijuca Tennis Club, I forgot. This is something that I think is very important to say. So there was like 5 of us who were from out of state and lived in this house that was provided by the club, right? And the house's nickname, before I was there, the house's nickname was Senzala, right? And this nickname was there for years. And the reason for that, Senzala is the slaves' quarters, right? That's the name that they use for the slaves' quarters in Brazil, right? And that was affectionately called the Senzala. And in a way, like we in a way do try to kind of embrace that, because it is empowering in certain ways, right? You can do some empowerment with that, but there's a clear message here, right? That's where the black people who are here and winning championships for you, right? That's where they are, right? And then everybody else lives in other places, right? So, so and again, and you can make the argument, a lot of Brazilians will say, oh, it's not about race, it's about class, right? But as we keep talking in this class, right, you cannot separate class from race in Brazil, right? And things that are classist, there are classist policies because they are trying to protect white people, right? And because the white people are the ones who are wealthy, right? So, and as Jamir was saying, like, me leaving, I left home when I was 16, right? And I was like thrown in.
Left him on 15.
You were 15. You were 15. My brother was 14 when he left, right? And I think about this now, like, I would not let my kid do this when they're 14. I look at my 14-year-old, like my 14-year-old, like suburban, nephew. Was like, what are my parents thinking? But again, it was, and for me, like, I know we never talked about this with my parents, but I know, like, in the end, they understood the financial repercussions of me going, which will free them up quite a bit, right? But so, and at the time I didn't think about race the way I think about it today. So I had to look back and think about those things. Oh man, that was fucked up, right? That was racist what happened right here, right? So that's something kind of interesting to kind of think about. We're young and we don't think about this, right? But as we keep thinking about it and questioning some things, as we learn more about the world, we start realizing like that, how important that is. So.
Man, I didn't talk about other story. You talk about the problems if you're living on the place of the club for play basketball. We talk about the name of the Senzala in Brazil. We talk these places is like a repúblicas, né? And you talk about Senzala. In these interviews, if I do in the last months, I have interviewed the great player in Brazil, and you talk about the vision of these guys, the owners of the clubs, the director of the clubs, how this division he has about the players. He's a pro player in Brazil, playing on the big soccer team in Brazil. I don't say the names of the club and the players we don't have a problems. But the guy using the expression, the guy from Senzala, they used his expression in one practice, for talking about the other black player for other team. For me, so tough because we stayed in 2022, man. And the white guy, the white rich guy used that expression in Brazil. For me, so tough this. And the guy don't play on this club again because they have these problems, the guys. Because that's the image the guys have for us, the white owners. the white and wealthy and rich owners have for the players. We just we talk in Brazil. We just meet, you know. We talk about this in Brazil. We just as slaves, man. Make this. You're gonna use this for play basketball, have some championships, but it's okay. It's just this. You never go to my home. You never go to swing on a pole. You never go stay on the swing on the pole of these guys on his homes. It's such a thing Brazil for it is. And you talk about to living on these republicas when you have 15 years old. It's so tough because when I remember a lot of bad food every time. It's so dirty places. The guys is not have want to clean the homes and the rooms. It's so tough things and the directors and the people to help us. They want you for us to stay. That's not a problem. It's okay. These guys stay okay. Just play basketball. It's okay for me. But the people don't think about when have problems with the health, the hungry. I remember this part of my life I played basketball. We were so young. I remember a lot of hungry because we as young, we have a lot of practices, and I want to eat every time. But when we have a chance to eat every time, we have a chance to eat a good food. This is for me so tough to play basketball. And I have a kid today to go up, and my kid have a 15 years old. And want to play basketball in other places. I need to go to the place and watching out if the guy have a chance to have a great school with the people watching for him every time and have a time to have a great food. For me, it's so important for be an athlete. In Brazil, it's so tough to have this. And you still talking about the clubs. For me, it's important for tough for them a book because we have traditional clubs in Brazil, in São Paulo, and we have a lot of black guys on the teams, in the all teams, on the youth teams, on the pro team. But the guys want to use the club. The guys want to use the pools of the club, want to use the fields and the parks, the restaurants of the clubs. The directors talk about this. You can go to the court, go to the gym, go to this place to eating with the empregados and employers.
With the staff, yep.
You can eat in this place with the staff of the club eating. You did this. You need inside of the club on the staff places. On the staff gate, no, on the major gate, on the staff gates. And I see it is on the clubs in Rio, in clubs in Brasilia, in clubs in São Paulo. Is a normal to see this. For me, so tough because the people, you can use my uniform to play basketball. We give me some championships, but living the same life if I live, no, never. You can't stay. That's not your place, man. You stay here just to play. For me, so tough this Brazil. When you talk about
the architecture of that, going back to I mentioned the students, like the most apartments have 2 doors and have 2 elevators, right, to the service. Yeah. And in the gyms in this place, especially the places who are well known for basketball, the gyms are situated in a way that you can work on that club, you can play basketball for that club your whole life, and you will never step foot inside the club. The social part of it,
title, né?
Because it opens the gates open to the back, so you don't even have to go through the club to do it, right? And that was like the rules are very very clear and strict. Like you don't go through that door, you go through this door, and you get yelled at if you go through the door, right? Think about the food, like, and I feel like I was privileged enough because the 3 clubs that I play for, the 4 clubs that I played for, they were. We had good food comparatively, right? We had access to good food. Sometimes it was choppy, but not always. But again, think about this: like teenagers doing like a high, high performance at sports, and I normally got 2 meals. It was 2 good meals, but it was 2 meals, right? I never had breakfast. Like nobody ever gave us breakfast, right? And I never thought about it this way. I always had a hard time gaining weight, right? And then when I was 16, almost every single center in when I was playing took steroids and got bigger, and I didn't. And I was left behind because I didn't take steroids because these guys were getting bigger on steroids. And including one who came to the NBA and got banned for steroids. I moved to the United States, where I had like cafeteria food. As much as we all complain about cafeteria food, I never do because it's fucking awesome, right? Because they give you whatever you want. I gained 40 pounds in 2 months. Right?
Like, I will do the same, man. If you have the chance.
And good pounds too. Like, because I was gaining weight. I was gaining muscle mass, right? And I struggled with this throughout my career in Brazil. And then I thought about this way, like, well, I'll be taking like, those high calorie intake things and nothing happened. And I never realized that I didn't have 3 meals a day. I only had 2, sometimes 2. And they were like limited.
The lunch and the dinner, maybe it's these.
Yeah. And most places were like prato feito, which is like they give you the plate. And you don't get seconds, you don't get anything. So yeah. So okay, I want to open up for some questions. If anybody has any questions, again, it can be about what we're talking about here, or about something else, or something that you want maybe clarification that we've been talking about here. So this is a little more unstructured than maybe some things that kind of flew by and you wanted more of the context.
I see some guys, some people from Brazil. I see my girlfriend in online now, Amanda. I see my friends, Luciano, Sergio, Jaime. A lot of friends stay online, and maybe have some questions. We can talk, man.
I think Kate had a question, so Kate can ask it. Then we could actually definitely, even people can share their experiences too. Go ahead, Kate.
Okay.
I'm just curious about the quota system in sports and how that works.
So we don't have a quota system in sports, right? So the quota system is in education. And that's actually an interesting question, because, when you think about it, you may have to have a quota for white people in Brazil, right? However, that's another context. I don't know how it was for you, Jamir, but at least for all the teams that I played for, there was a quota for paying members, right? So you had to have a minimum number of people who were paying members of the club, right? To play.
Clubs in Brazil have teams.
They would bring players to play to win championships. And again, I had actually, I think of Manteiguinha, right? Manteiguinha was a playing member, and he was phenomenal. He was the national team,
great player,
one of the best players of his generation too. But the quota was the contrary, right? The quota was actually the reverse. You had quotas for the paying members of the club, right, which were overwhelmingly white. I think I have never played with a quota player who was not white, right? But in general, the people winning championships were the black players, black and brown players they were bringing in. So does that make sense? I actually never thought about that as a quota.
Yeah,
but it is.
Yes. And that's a chance when the big guys have a chance to play basketball. For me, the short guys have a little less chance to play basketball, because they have a chance to one club, one teacher watching you on the street and say, hey, short guy gonna play basketball. We see guys like us. I have a 6'9", you have a 6'10", 6'9", you too.
Yeah.
And the people watching, hey, you're a tall guy. You want to go to play basketball in my club, and you have a chance to play. And for me, this is one big problem. And another problem in the team that I watch is I talk about having one guy coaching on the national on the pro teams in Brazil. But if you're watching, I don't know the word in English for this. We in Brazil talk the guy of the mordomo, is the water guy, the guy who have the tools, the guy gonna clean the court and do some issues on the court on the gym. This guy in Brazil is the mordomo. In US, like this is a
the literal translation be butler.
That's
the name that they use. But
on the teams.
And we were talking about this because you were asking me this question, and I was like, especially in the context of college, right? So in college, you have student athletes who want to continue. Some of them are getting paid, student, student employment for it. Some of them want to do it because they want to, kind of pursue a career, and just being close is enough. And so I told Jamir, like, it's an interesting thing because, and this also goes to the hierarchical nature of Brazil. That is a little different, in different contexts, but I think especially in this context, right? People don't want to get water, right? So they get these people, they pay them, which they're never really well paid, or very rarely are well paid. And these are black and brown people who are there to literally serve the players as they're playing. So they give water, they give massages, right? They'll make sure your shoes are there. Sometimes they'll
shots, take some rebounds for take a shot, and the guys giving some maybe $20 for you take some shots for me. We talked about this. We have one black guy coaching in the pro league in Brazil, but we call it the butlers of the team is maybe 80% of the guys is black in the butlers.
Yep.
And having one woman in one team, but this is for me so tough. We say talking about the culture in Brazil about this. We have a ridiculous culture on the apartment. Remember the like the dependência de empregada, like the butler's room.
Yeah, the butler's quarters. I wouldn't say
the butler's quarters.
Like...
In a small room in the place of the apartment is a place like a little bathroom. It's a ridiculous place for just having one bed. And we have this in Brazil. This culture maybe it's normal. It's common in Brazil, but this is ridiculous. Man, we have a lot of problems with this culture in Brazil of the slave ship. For me, it's coming from the slave ship. Maybe the people don't have a chance to have a real life, a real good life. I work for you. I need to work like a slave. This is so tough for me in Brazil. And the white people and the people to have to stay on the owners of the team, they have this vision every time, like the master, no?
Like they're doing you a favor for by giving you less than minimum wage, right, or skirting the law and just giving you the minimum possible. They think they're doing you a favor because you have no other option.
Yes, a lot of guys, the owners of the team have the image like a white savior. A lot of guys think like this in Brazil. This image of the white savior, say the black guy playing for your team or working for you, and you are the white savior. Maybe I'm the superhero to have a chance to have a job. And this is ridiculous. It's so normal to see this in Brazil, this culture. Yeah. We have a lot of white saviors in Brazil every time. We say talking about the issues of the black people, and some white people gonna need to take the mic and talk about his story. We have this in Brazil every time. The white people want to take the mic of the black people for talk about your issues when we stay talking about the black issues. It's no more in Brazil, bro. So normal in Brazil.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of like I said, I mean, some of your friends here. So if anybody wants to share, if there's any basketball players who may want to share.
I have a basketball player. You have a Jaime. Jaime's a basketball player. He plays the other center. Someone have some question? Alguns brasileiros têm pergunta, or the students have some question?
I have a question.
Hi, Jamir.
Oh, go ahead, Lily, and then depois o Jaime.
Kind of going off of Kate's question, is there something in Brazil similar to in the United States with Title IX, how there has to be sort of at schools equal amounts of female and male athletes, or no?
No. Yeah, and listen, we're not even touching the wide gap between men's sports and women's sports, right? And also to remember, we're playing sports in clubs. There is very little sports in schools, right? Especially in public schools, right? Well, actually, no, everywhere, because the focus is so much on taking the entry exam to go to the best possible college, right? In especially in private schools, that's my experience. They're focused so much on that recreation and sports are seen as a distraction. I have a really good friend of mine who now is a doctor, and he has done well, but he was the best soccer player that I've seen play. I mean, it's not he wasn't gonna be Ronaldinho or Neymar, but growing up, he was the best soccer player, and he had calls for all the time for the clubs for him to go try out. When he was 14, 15, and his dad was like, "No, you're not playing sports. That's useless. You're gonna stay in school." And he's fine now. He's happy, but he could never see if he was a good player, right? But going back to your idea, Lily, I think, and I talk about this in my classes quite a bit, especially your generation, you're maybe the first generation of people who were Title IX, yes, most of students in political science are interested in this kind of stuff, right? But it's a generation that doesn't have to think about it, right? You all played or had the chance to play high school sports, right? There was no question. Of course, I'm sure there's some issues and debates and the kinds of sports to get funding and things like that, right? But it was an entitlement. It was a given that you play sports, right? In Brazil, that's not an entitlement to anybody, but especially for women, right? So you don't play sports in school. If you're going to play sport, you're going to play sport at this club level, and that may be the first thing to go when your schedule gets busy, right? So the clubs that I played to, there was always a volleyball team, a women's volleyball team, and sometimes a women's basketball team, right? But the basketball teams were few far between, and those are mostly populated by women, Black and brown women who were there to play, right? So which means that they're not going to school, or they're going to school, but that was not intent, right? So this culture and nature of like the importance of sports in education is not the same in Brazil, right?
Yeah,
it's changing, and we have there's a lot of people trying to do good work, actually, some people that we're going to meet actually in Brazil. But this idea of the centrality of sports in people's lives is not something in Brazil. So there's no Title IX because there's no, and of course, Title IX is more than sports, right? We're focusing on the sports part of Title IX here, but there's no Title IX because there's no point, because that is not connected to education, really. So it's a really good question. It's something that I get passionate about, because it's hard to even contextualize in Brazil, right? If you try to explain Title IX to somebody in Brazil, I want to see if one of you can do that. Try to explain what Title IX is and see what kind of face they give you.
Yeah, we talk about this, Pedro, on the sports in Brazil. My family is so different, because my father starts to on the track and field. He have a chance to change his life, and he take his brothers to go to the track and field too, and everybody have a chance to change their life. My dad goes to the college because he have a scholarship with the track and field, and I watching my dad and thinking, man, I can do this too. I can have a chance to study with the basketball, and I want to pass this for my kids, because it's a chance to change their life, man. To go to the great schools, have a chance to see other places, to little travels, and basketball is so important. The sports are important in my life, because change a lot of things, like discipline. Discipline is like
give you discipline, right? Discipline,
right? Discipline, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a discipline for my whole life. For now, because this time I need to study. On the basketball, this time I need to practice for be better, and I understand that I need to work so hard, or have a chance to go to have a great numbers on the college. And basketball, learn things on the basketball. The sport's so important for me, but it's not normal, not common in Brazil. We have the families to have this culture to go to sport to change his lives. It's so tough to watch in Brazil. Just here.
And the reverse is true too. Like, it's not just sports, not the reverse, but it's not just sports. It's music. It's like, any extracurricular really that is not about you preparing yourself for the entry exam is seen as superfluous, right? So I joke that I'm pretty sure, of course, I grew up in Brazil, so it's hard to kind of do this, but I think if I grew up in the United States, I wouldn't have played basketball, right? Because I'm a nerd. Like, I just had nobody to be nerdy with in Brazil, right? So I had Dungeons and Dragons and nobody to play with, right? And like, I would have been a debater probably. I would have been, a debater here. There's no debate in Brazil, right? I think now there's some, but there's no debate. There's no Model UN in Brazil, right? I mean, unless you live in a very specific, go to very specific schools, right? You go to school to study, and then I got lucky that I started playing basketball, and basketball became the way out to a certain extent of this life of study, basically. But it's so focused that you don't think about anything else, right? And I made this joke quite a few times. Like, I'm in Brazil. I was poor enough that my family didn't have money for me to play an instrument, but I wasn't too poor that I had to learn an instrument for my livelihood, right? So I don't play instruments. Music is a big part of my life, but I don't play anything because we didn't have money for the extracurriculars for me to play music, right? And a lot of people that I know who are musicians either had a leisure time, they had the means to do it, or are musicians because that's their way out of their situation, right? There's one of the ways out that they found, and they were good enough at that. So So those things that to me like are very interesting, and especially thinking about this idea of the high school education in the United States, and how it's changing too, and becoming a lot more like Brazil, actually separating sports and those things from accessibility to everybody, equitable access to everybody, right? Because now you have to pay to play, literally anything. So that's that's again a very, very important question, and very important for you all when you get to Brazil to kind of think about that too, like how this aspect of education is very different. So Jaime ia falar alguma coisa?
Hi, everybody. Sorry for my English. Isn't that good? First of all, congratulate Pedro and Jamir for the good talk. And talking about my experience in basketball, I wasn't from the hood. I'm a black guy, but I wasn't from the hood. Thanks to my parents, I always had the chance to study in private schools and other stuff. But my dream was to be a soccer player, as almost everybody in Brazil. But on my 13s, 14s, I discovered basketball with a cousin, and went to a club to play. Don't have a lot of black guys in that club, and the coach isn't black. And back there, I don't notice, but I was a black guy with black power, the hair, and my coach is a woman, and she didn't let me play if I wasn't braid my hair, and back there I wasn't noticed, but it's a racism, it's racist, man. And now I grow and I see it. It's hard to see, to talk, to know. But even how can I say it in English? Eu tendo pouco mais de dinheiro. How can I say it?
A little more money, or a little wealthier.
Yeah, I'm a little wealthier. It doesn't run from the racism, Even I'm not from the hood like Jamir was. I always have racists with me, And it's tough, man. It's tough in Brazil. It's very tough.
Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, and I think that's part of it too. Like, and then because a lot of Brazilians still ascribe to the idea of racial democracy that we talked a lot about in my class, right? A lot of Brazilians still ascribe to that. So when you say this stuff, when you say, oh, I was, this person said something racist to me, or like, it's racism that they don't let me play with my fro. I have to braid my hair to play. When you say to somebody who does, even sometimes a brown person or even a black person who doesn't ascribe that, it's like, oh, you're reading too much into it, right? That's not what it is, right? And then think about my experience playing in the United States. I was the racist things that happened to me were more because for being Latino than for being black, because again, here I'm not black, right? And it took me like graduating from college and reading more about like race issues in the United States to realize how racist the opposing teams were, like the crowds were, the stuff that they said to me, right? I mean, wetback was a compliment, right? That I heard many times. I didn't even know what it was, right? And it took me a long time to realize that, right? There's a lot of things that like later on I start realizing more about this stuff. Like, I say this, it's tricky because it goes back to this, like, people are like, oh, maybe it's not racism, maybe it's something else. But like, my junior year, like I was the top rebounder, the second best rebounder in my league, top shot blocker. I was third in scoring. Did not get all state, all conference honors at all. Nothing, no honorable mention, no nothing. There was a week that I averaged almost a triple double and didn't get player of the week. Right, the guy that played player of the week, I destroyed him that week, and he got player of the week. And those are things that stayed. This is 20 years ago, and still it stings, right? Because then you start thinking like, is it because I wasn't good enough, or is this something else, right? I was one of the few, like, in my league, it's a NAIA level, so there were some schools with African American players, but most schools were actually white players. So my whole team was me. We joked that like between four of us, we had a full black guy, right? Because it was me and a few other mixed guys, and a bunch of white guys from the region, and then the Croatian, who was probably the blackest of us all. he married a African American woman whose parents were in the Black Panther party, right? So he was very much like into this stuff. But but all those things happen, and you start thinking like, is that racism? Am I reading too much into this? Right. And I had nobody to talk to because there was not a single person in my milieu that could understand that. Right. So same thing for Jaime. You couldn't talk to anybody there because they're like, what are you talking about? Like, just cut your hair. Right. That's probably what you heard. You probably heard that at some point or another. Right. So yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, we Jamir can talk better than me, but in Brazil we have, how can I say, seleções. How can I say seleções in English?
Seleção estadual?
Yeah.
Yeah, the state select teams.
Yeah, state select teams, and we almost don't have black guys in that state select, and the black guy is always better than the white ones, It's hard to see. It's racist, man.
No, it's so tough because James is talking about Brasilia, and Brasilia is a big city in Brazil. It's like a state. And like living in Santa Maria, I need to play on Brasilia, on the downtown of the Brasilia. I take 1 hour in the bus for how to practice and play basketball. It's so tough. And the poor people, the black people, don't have a chance to pay the ticket of the bus because it's so expensive, man. It's just not don't just the ticket. You get the ticket, it maybe have some snacks for you go and to return. It is for play basketball. It's so expensive. I talk here about these about it's so expensive to buy one shoes and pay the classes and pay the bus tickets and the snacks. Man, it's so tough for one black family, the poor family in Brazil. Yeah. It's so tough. And when maybe the guys have a chance to play basketball, but the people don't looking for you how good they are. He are because it's just like the white guy, the black guy do 20 points for the games, and it's okay. It's okay. One guy, two or three layups on the one game white guy. The people, he's a god. He's the best player of all time in Brazil. I have a big problem in Brazil with the Luka Doncic. I love Luka Doncic. For me, it's awesome because I love the FIBA basketball. I love FIBA basketball, and Luka play for the Slovenian national team. And I watching Luka Doncic play like he's about 16 years old when he comes to Brazil to play against the Bauru when he plays on the Real Madrid. And this guy's so nice. I love the Luka Doncic before to go to NBA because now in Brazil, the people stay on the ESPN talk about the games. The people like have a Luka Doncic like a god because he's white. For me that is the problem. We have a lot of great guys, a lot of great black guys in the NBA. But now have a great player, white guy, and the people love this because it's the white salvation for me, the people, because people, he's white, he's blonde, have a blue eyes. The people love
he's literally European, right?
Yeah, he's a European. He's not a black because maybe this, maybe I love the basketball for this too because I'm watching black guys have a chance to be stars on the basketball. I want to see this in other sports in Brazil. Maybe in soccer we have this, but if you're watching the last 20 years in Brazil, the type of the players stay changing because the wealthy families watching for the soccer players, and maybe it's a great career for my son, and have a lot of background for the guys to have a practice, have a nutritionist, have a great food, have great trainers to have a chance to play soccer. Soccer is so nice, Brazil, having do a lot of great money, and the poor guys from favela on the hoods don't have more chance to play soccer. With the chances, if you're watching for the National League of the soccer in Brazil, you can see so mumuch more white guys playing because they have a chance to training more, to have a managers and agents. This is so tough for me. And it's so tough to be a black athlete in Brazil. And return to talk about Luka Doncic, this is a problem. We have a lot of great black guys in Brazil, but Luka Doncic do a single layup to people, oh, Luka Doncic is a god. And I begin to hate this guy for this because the people from ESPN from Brazil. But Luka Doncic is a nice player, but for me, this maybe is so ridiculous.
Which, by the way, all white guys commentating. One of them was actually a friend of mine, but all white guys, right? So, so
it's very much.
And this got me thinking something, and hopefully, again, of course, none of you are into sports, so, and some of this may be getting boring. But in the U.S. context, it's something that I started paying attention to this, and I questioned my friends, and they were like, again, mostly white friends, like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't understand what's your point here. So, I lived in Kansas, so I follow KU basketball quite a bit. I think, but this is true to most like big Division I programs. There's always like one or two walk-ons, right? Players who don't have a scholarship, but they're going to play anyway, right? Or at least going to be on the team. And I started paying attention, because during the tournament, they're like, oh, look at this walk-on, 50-year red shirt, playing so well. Look at his perseverance. Like, these are all white guys going to med school. I'm simplifying here, but like, there's all like guys, suburban, who, like in the case of KU, they're always players who are from Kansas, right? Who are from the suburbs of Kansas, and were good players. And that's the thing. They would have probably start at another D1 team, or they probably play Division II somewhere and be good and get a scholarship for it. But they wanted to play at KU, right? Which again, completely understandable. It's tradition. Like Indiana has the same thing, like Kentucky, all those places. But those guys are all white, right? And I remember this, man. I had this, and these are also like teenagers, right? They're young. So I try not to put too much into that, but one time I went to this dinner. My wife used to work at this halfway home in Lawrence, and for this dinner they brought this one of these walk-ons who was from the richest neighborhood. Like Kansas City has one of the richest zip code in the country, right? He was from that zip code, and like he's telling the stories about basketball and about schooling, because it's like to motivate these kids who are halfway homes, who are from very troubled backgrounds, that how hard work and perseverance is going to get you out of here, right? Type thing. So this guy talking about like this background is like, my mom and my dad gave me this. I played in this AAU team, which costs money, right? So I tried hard and I did it, right? And I'm like, seriously, I think this is the wrong crowd, dude. But in Brazil it's very similar. Like, so look, you use the examples of the successes, right? So when you have soccer team, like, oh, look at this one guy who succeeded, right? We focus so much on, and this happens here too, right? We focus so much on that success, and we ignore completely the literally hundreds of thousands of people who have not succeeded in other problems. So we focus, oh, let's see, he did it, so why can't you do it, right? So that's like from our last talk, that's where individualized racism and structural racism get together, right? Because that's when people go, oh, why didn't you do that? Why weren't you so successful as this person? Like, he could do it. Why? We compare every black woman to Oprah, but we don't compare every white dude to Elon Musk, right? So like, why couldn't you do it, right? So yeah, I get agitated about this stuff.
Man, I just want the equality, justice, just equality, to have the same chance to do something. The people in Brazil maybe don't have a chance to do what he's like, The people do something for survive. That's the big problem in Brazil. Like when they study something or work in something for survive. That's the vision of the people. The people don't want to study something they're learning something about they really like. I'm gonna survive. Maybe they're gonna play basketball because they have a chance to survive, have a better life. I'm gonna work in teams because I have a chance to have a better life in here than in survive. This is very important because the people just survive. The people don't live in Brazil. Just survive. The big part of the people just survive, man. Don't think about, don't have plans to go to other places, other countries. The people just survive. This is so tough for me in the life. We have the real life, big life for have a great experience, but the people stay happy for have a food on the table and to have a place to live. This for me is so small, and I wanna the people have a chance to equality, just equality, have the same chances. Nothing more for anybody. I wanna have equality. The whole world, maybe US too. This is the same problem.
Yeah, I'm gonna find an article because especially where Jamir is from, like Santa Maria, it is a really tough community to live in. I think Jamir said, like, there's of course in the community there's
So
different
maybe
places.
the more tough a few years ago is the more tough community in Brasilia, but we lost these for another places like Itapuã and Zona Centro
Right.
in Brasilia.
So
It's
so
more tough places.
so Brazil is, to me, is interesting. So I'm going to find the article that talks about this. I don't know the numbers right now, but the inequality in Brazil. So if you look at the Human Development Index, right? So the UN's Development Index, the city of Brasilia has a HDI equivalent to Belgium, right?
Yeah.
And places like where Jamil lives have an HDI equivalent to Rwanda, right? And these are like 45 minutes away, like an hour away on a bus, right? So in Brazil itself, like, it's a beautiful architecture design, but it's like it's a space made to control people and to control who comes in and who comes out, right? So that, we talk about equality, about equity. It's hard even to imagine sometimes, because here we have redlining, we have this differences in the United States, and crossing the other side of the train tracks, those things that we kind of that most of you are kind of familiar with, right? But the poverty divide is not so ridiculously visible as it is in a lot, not just there, but in a lot of places in Brazil. Just an example, because I know we talked a lot about this with Jamir, like about his community and the problems that they have there with crime, with drugs.
You talk about this, Pedro, and I think in the basketball have given me the chance to stay with the poor guys, to stay playing basketball. Don't have money for pay the tickets for go to the downtown to play basketball. On the same game, the same court, you have the guy who his dad have a helicopter. On the same court, on the same time, I have two types of the guys. Basketball show with tees in the city. I live in the Santa Maria, on the more tough hoods on the whole city, but I have a chance to play basketball on the place. The name is Lago Sul in Brazil. When the people have on the region, every one people have 23Ks in reais per month, and maybe in my place in Santa Maria, the people have 1K reais for his whole family, the 5 people. Maybe that is so crazy in Brazil, because I can watch these on the same day. I stay with my guys on my hood, and do the guys just have one meal for the day, and I'm gonna play basketball with some guys to have a helicopter, go to all countries of the world, have a lot of money, and it's so crazy from my head, so crazy. But this is Brazil. This is real Brazil. It's so tough to watch. In Brazil, we have this. We can watching this so simple to watch this. You talk about my hood is of 1 hour for the downtown, and when we're walking, we'll go to the Lago Sul, expensive place. 1 hour, or maybe 1 hour, not half an hour. We go to the São Sebastião or Itapuã or Paranoá. We have a lot of people if they're hungry. A lot of people don't have a chance to eat in something, have a bad places. That is so crazy, so crazy.
You have Islam in Central area in Brasilia too. Vila Tele Brasilia, Jamir.
Yeah. The Vila Tele Brasilia,
yeah. It's in the central area of Brazil.
Really.
In 2000, in 2019, I had the opportunity to went to South Africa and to see the Sowetos and learn some from apartheid. And it's not different from we live in Brazil, The black community is based on the in Brasilia we talk satellites. It's the
satellite cities,
satellite cities, and it's the apartheid, you keep the black person from the opportunities, but they say, oh, you can get this too. You can go and achieve your success, but we don't have the same opportunities, And the black community in Brazil is different than the United States, because you have how can I say, opportunities from athletes and academics. In Brazil, we don't have this. If you don't work hard and hard and hard, 10 times harder than a white people, you can achieve success, And it's very different than in Brazil and United States. It's different.
I want to be respectful of people's times. I think we're gonna just continue to talk a little bit, also because I haven't talked to these people for a long time. But for the people in my class, feel free to leave whenever you have to. But we can have a continue the conversation here too. But I want to open any more questions that people may have. One last question, official class question.
I have a question, Pedro. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys kind of touched on this, but I was wondering what the dynamic was kind of between like coaches or owners of your clubs, basketball clubs, and like that race dynamic between that and like their players. And if that kind of had anything you guys want to talk about.
Yeah. I can talk about this. I can talk, Pedro, or you want to talk?
Sure. And I think, and for me, like I was also younger, right? And like actually, sometimes I didn't know who the owners really were. Like I wasn't really aware. Also, I wasn't aware of the politics. It's funny because now I talked to my friend Diego that I mentioned before. Like, and his dad was like also like a big name in basketball in the 70s. So he was much more like involved. It's like being first gen, right? He understood much more the dynamics of this than I did. And honestly, when I was 16, I was just happy somebody gave me money to play basketball, right? So I wasn't thinking about those things. So I knew who the manager was, right? But I actually didn't even know like who at the time who the owner will be of the team, right? And that also says something about the separation, right? Here I am getting employed by this team, but like I actually did not know the people, right? And again, I have to say I was privileged because I did have a lot of like thoughtful managers, right? People who actually were caring for us, that were thinking about this, that were, kind of thinking about our well-being in ways that I know other friends of mine did not experience the same thing, right? So, but at the professional level, I think it's a completely different thing. And again, it's not universal, but I think you can really think about this as this idea that, the owners, there's a hierarchy, and this happens here too. Like they're wealthy owners, right? They want to make money out of this, but they also see this as helping society. So the white saviorism becomes very big part of it, and they may have good intentions, but they're not understanding they're not understanding the unintentional harm they may be causing, either by the way they talk or even by the things they provide to the players, right? Or the things they're not thinking about providing to the players. Right, all those things are kind of an important way to think about that too. So, of course, it varies, but I think some people are more genuinely worry about young adults' well-being than others. So,
For me, maybe stuff because I have a lot of bad directors and supervisors in my whole career in basketball. I remember when I played on Macaé. I have one guy who's a director. He's the father of one player from my team. And I have an injury on the game against Flamengo. I have an ankle problem, and I have a lot of pain on the game. I stay outside 1 week of the practice, and anybody give me any help, any help, Anybody go to the hospital and send me some pills. Anybody give me nothing. I stay on my place every time and buy some ice for my ankle and buy some pills and drugs for don't have a pain. But anybody give me some help. It may be so tough. And the final of the week, this director gonna to my room and say, okay, Jamir, you need to play, man. You need to play. You need to go on the game. You have a lot of pain, but it's okay. You need to play, man. You're a black man. The black man can support more pain. You want a gun in Brazil. You're a big nigger. You can work with the pain, man. You need to play. And this guy don't give me any help. For me, so tough for the things. I have 18 years old, and I have a little hungry, but I say, man, this is ridiculous. But I don't have I don't have what's the word? I don't have the words for talk for the guy because it's so young and maybe scary. And they're gonna play with a lot of pain and play a bad game because they'll stay healthy for play. But for me, that's the image of the directors and the supervisors of the guys on the basketball. I watch a lot of stories on my interviews of my book. A lot of guys talk about these, about the problems with the directors. One chapter of my book, we start talking about the injuries of the basketball players. And we have some players have some injuries and a little fracture of his foot. And these guys wanna play, and maybe take some injection, It's injection.
I think a shot, yeah.
Yeah, like a shot on the arm for play every game, and don't give the guy a surgery or a little great help, which is for me so tough. So tough in Brazil. The directors is ridiculous, and we have a lot of ridiculous thing for me, because when the guy is good, they do what he need to do, and give you a great money, great food, and great health. We have the minimum if the guys needs for play. And maybe the guys win the championship. The real good work is not the players who stay on the court, do stay leading for the team. It's not for the players. The people gonna talk about, no, this director is nice. We win the championship because the director do the minimum of the guys needs to play. And it's for me so normal culture in Brazil that people talk about this. The players stay on the court working so hard or win the championship, where the people gonna talk about the director. This director is so nice, so important. See, he does everything for these players. These players never gonna win if without this director. For me, this is ridiculous. But it's a normal culture in Brazil.
All right. So, like I said, we're out of time, but we can keep going for a little more, and we can talk in Portuguese in a little bit when people, when the Americans leave too. But yeah, any other questions? But by the way, I mean, so Morgan is on the basketball team here. She plays for the college.
Yeah.
Well, so. Any other questions?
Someone have some question?
All right. Well, I think a lot of my students are leaving, which is time for them to go to do other stuff. So thank you, Jamie.